Welcome to the main meeting of the Education Committee. Can I remind members that the proceedings of the committee will be recorded and made open to the public. Right, do you have any Sederunt and apologies, Claire?
Morning, Chairman. Apologies from Canon Paisley. Councillors Brodie, Yen, McComb, Mr McQuiston are not present at the start of the meeting. There's 18 members present at the start.
Thanks, Claire. Do you have any declarations of interest? No indications. So can we move to the minute of the meeting of 25th of March 2014? Can I have someone move it as being a correct minute of the Education Committee meeting?
Happy to move, Chairman.
So if we move to item 4, Parent Council representation on the Education Committee. Just a way of background, a number of local authorities do have Parent Council representatives on their Education Committee with non-voting rights, and we have been approached by Parent Councils. I think a petition signed by quite a number of members of Parent Councils was handed in, which we've been considering, and that's the purpose behind this report. So basically what we're proposing is, or what we ask to consider, is the appointment of up to 2 Parent Council members to the Education Committee. So effectively, I suppose that would be one representing the primary schools and the other the secondary schools. And depend upon whether we make that decision to accept that the appointments, to recommend to full council that the scheme of administration delegation to committees be amended with respect to the constitution of the Education Committee, and for them to make the necessary arrangements to progress the appointment of up to 2 Parent Council members. So possibly the best thing for them to do, and I'm not giving them any sort of instruction, is to actually look at how those local authorities who already have Parent Council representatives actually choose who are going to be the Parent Council representatives. So I don't know who's the...
She can't make it.
Oh, right. Joe Cochrane isn't present, so the director will answer any questions. So can I open it up to the floor for discussion? Alsa?
Thanks, Chair. Is it anticipated that the Parent Forum will be the body responsible for progressing this matter in terms of the appointment of parents?
Yes, Chair, thanks. Yeah, we would anticipate we've got a Parent Forum. We've got a number of mechanisms set up to ensure that we'll be able to use a democratic method to take representatives forward, and we would expect officers to progress that through the agreement that the scheme of delegation is amended.
Peter?
There we go. Sorry. No, I'm not going to get too excited about this, but I don't see the point of having someone on the committee that can't actually vote. And I think at the moment all parent councils do have a voice on this committee through ourselves, which is used on a regular basis. And I find it very difficult for them to select 2 people from the whole of Dumfries and Galloway to be representative on this committee. And the other point would be, where do we stop? Do we, on other committees, you know, whether it be planning or whatever, of getting other people on the... I think the committee ought to be just for the councils.
Yeah, clearly this is a decision for members to make. However, I would highlight the fact that we do have 2 teacher members who don't vote at the moment, and it has often been the case useful for this committee to hear the views of the teacher members who seek to represent all of the teachers. I recognise that with 2,000 or 1,800 teachers, it's sometimes hard to get that representative level, but that attempt is made. Equally, it's challenging in that we've got really 20 to 30,000 parents at least out there, but nonetheless we do have a group at the moment who represent parental views And because they wouldn't be able to vote, but at least be able to report back to you at council on occasions what the general view is out there when they go to meetings and they represent parents, I suppose that's where they thought might be that they might be a useful addition to this committee.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Recommendation 2.2 specifically refers to parent council members. How do you accommodate the parents in schools where there is no parent council?
That would obviously be a much more difficult task in terms of consultation. I don't see an easy way of doing that. I think that's why it actually specifies parent council members.
My reading of that is it was to be parents on this council. So it's not necessary that they be parent council members in a school, but you're looking for 2 parents to be parts of this council in terms of this education committee.
Gail?
Thank you, Chair. That's not my reading of it. I've just echoed Graham. I have no problem with having a primary and a secondary representative through the parental forum, which I think is a regionally based thing anyway. I do have some sympathies with Councillor Diggle's views, though. I do think it's where do we stop? Do we end up with a federation of community councils represented on policy and resources and such like? But my question is, how long would they sit on it for? And how would we ensure that, for instance, a parent on the parental forum who is nominated to this has a child in primary 6 and then the child goes into 7 and then leaves the school and they no longer have a locus for primary representation? So it would need to be secured that those who were sitting on it were fully representative of the body they were representing and the length of time they would sit on it.
My suggestion would be, Chair, that the work that's required in the background to set up the mechanisms for determining who it is that would sit, what the democratic process for that would be, what the length of time they would sit would be, and the role that they would have needs to go on after you've agreed in principle to the arrangements, and we would then come back to this committee with suggested arrangements for you to ratify probably after the recess.
I'd just say, obviously some councils have had this running for quite a while, so I don't think we should be reinventing the wheel here in terms of how we actually handle that. And I'm quite happy if that's the advice from the director. You want to come back in?
Yeah, just briefly, it might have been better if we'd had it the other way around then, that we had the detail of how it was going to operate and work and how people were going to be nominated before we made a decision as to whether we wanted them on the education committee.
Yeah, that would obviously be quite a body of work in order to get that. I think if we agree in principle that we've got to have this, then we can have the background information come to a later meeting of this committee. Alfie?
Thanks so much, Chair. I suppose my question is as much for... I've got similar concerns, you could say, in regards to what Peter's raised and some others, but the test for me was I try to think of different scenarios where it could apply, where we could actually benefit as a committee from this. So I reflected back and I thought the Cluster Working Review and Dumfries Learning Town in particular, I thought would we have benefited as a council, as a committee in regards to that. So I put it as much to the members and the director as well. Do you think in real terms we would benefit if we had a couple of, and I would agree if we do go forward in principle with this, that it is a primary and a secondary representative. Do you think we would benefit if there'd been, I think we'd have seen benefits here or not? And that's as much for the director and it is to members as well, if there's any feedback from them.
Yeah, I think we all recognise the huge amount of work that the parent councils do in the running of the schools effectively, and I do think it would be a useful way for them to actually input into the committee. So I personally would be fully supportive of what's been proposed here.
Chair, if I could add to that, yeah, I think it probably would have been useful, but again, we need to make sure that it's representative in terms of views. I suppose, to answer Councillor McGregor's point, because 2 years ago, I think we brought forward a paper simply asking, did you want to have parent representatives? At that point, members felt, in principle, philosophically, no, for some of the reasons that have been raised before. And to that extent, rather than going away and doing all the detailed work, we wanted to come to you and say, have you changed your views in principle about it? And if so, it's not the mechanism that's concerned, it's whether you want to have parent council reps on the committee.
I mean, I'm okay. I mean, at a personal level, I'm okay in principle, but in regards to the mechanisms, how to come forward, I would like to see that at full council. If that's the case, then we could take a full debate so we have a much better understanding. And if there's any points, we could certainly raise it beforehand before the report's drafted and it give you an indication, even at a group level, if it comes to that. But I think there's 2 or 3 questions here that we still like to be answered, which I don't think there's any point in raising today.
Right. Can we move to the recommendations? Okay. 2.1, consider the review presented of arrangements in other local authorities for parent council representatives as detailed in Appendix 1. Is that okay? Yeah, we've considered that. 2.2, agree in principle to the appointment of up to 2 parent council members to the Education Committee. Are we in agreement? Ian?
I mean, I suppose I'll come back to full council like we're asking, but I mean, I think it was valid saying that one from primary, one from secondary, if possible. That would certainly be my preference.
Jim?
Still seeking clarification, Chair. Are these people parent representatives or do they need to be on an elected parent council?
I think the director said earlier on there are parent representatives that don't have to be on the parent council. Although obviously the consultation and the agreement would be much more difficult if we had to survey every parent. But yeah, that's the situation. So in terms of 2.2, are we in agreement? And 2.3, therefore, I assume that goes through automatically since we've made the agreement. It will then be recommended to full council that the scheme of administration and delegation to committees be amended with respect to the constitution of the Education Committee, and that the necessary arrangements should be made to progress the appointment of up to 2 parent council members. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. Just on that point, I mean, I agree with that in principle, certainly, but it's, like to see the mechanics, kind of, I mean, I think probably taking a parent from a school that hasn't got a parent council, I'd probably struggle with that a wee bit, but I'd like to see the mechanics behind that. And so if I feel that if 2.3, if we're being pushed in a certain direction, I'd rather still feel that when it comes back to full council, we'll have the chance to question that and just so we're absolutely clear how it works.
Chair, can I suggest therefore that we include in 2.3 that when we recommend to full council that the scheme of administration delegation be amended, we also recommend at that point the arrangements that would be put in place so that full council in the same report was able to debate or discuss as necessary the proposed arrangements as well as agreeing to the scheme of delegation being changed. It may be that it won't go to June full council in terms of timing. Therefore, it's likely to be that we've got time over the recess to work up the detail.
Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you, members. If we move to item 5, which is ICT in schools performance. This was a report which was requested, I think, at the last education committee meeting in terms of the poor performance against one of the key performance indicators, and we have Gillian to speak to the paper and to answer any questions together with Lauren Foss.
Yes, this report, thank you, Chair, good morning members. This report was on request following the last performance report. There were a number of questions raised which were both deeper and broader than the exception report and the performance report was able to provide. So we thought it was helpful for members to give more detail on some of the local and national challenges that our ICT and in particular GLOW is facing, which has led to the reduction in pupil log-on numbers which we reported back in March. Both Lauren and I are happy to take any questions.
So if we can throw it open to the floor if anybody wants to make a contribution. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. It certainly wasn't me who raised this in the first place, but I'm glad it was. And I've not got any real issues with it in regards to it. Recommendation 2.1, where we're asked to agree, that's where we're really making the decision. Where does that refer to within the report? I mean, I'm picking it up under paragraph 3.4. second paragraph in particular. Is that the case? And if there's anywhere else, just say it's the action points behind what we're agreeing to in 2.1. I'm really keen to be absolutely clear on.
Gillian?
Yes, thank you for that. We recognise that the ICT Strategy Group is the main decision-making forum for education services, and that would normally report to the ICT Board at a corporate level. Those arrangements had changed, and perhaps some of the practical operational decisions that had to be made had limited forum for discussion. So yes, exactly right. 3.4 is the actions that we will take as a service, monitored by the Assistant Chief Executive, I have to say, who's asked to be kept informed of this, and that monitoring and decision-making forum will be our main arrangements between us and Business and Technology Solutions.
Just thanks for that. I wonder, Chair, if we could incorporate that into the recommendations when we come to that it's recognised 3.4 is exactly what we're talking about.
We've got another. Alison?
Thanks, Chair. Children nowadays are quite tender years, have access to quite sophisticated kit, which we would never have dreamt would have happened in our younger days. So are we always going to be playing catch up? Is it, in terms of, in youth speak, is it, do they look on school equipment as a bit naff compared to the stuff they've got? And what can we do about that? Are we fighting a losing battle? Are we never going to win this one?
Gillian?
It's an interesting question, because I think technology moves at such a fast pace that there'll always be an element of catch-up inside there. Moving forward, though, the SWAN network that's rolling out between November and probably June time next year, that will provide a third network that pupils will be able to bring in their own devices and use to get internet access, which then theoretically would allow us to link back up to Glow as well. So at that point, they'll be able to bring in their own netbooks, laptops, use smartphones, or whatever technology is available. I think the key thing for us is ensuring that we've got enough bandwidth to allow any device, any technology to be used for the right purposes. So we are playing catch up at this moment in time, but there will be a point fairly soon where all technology will be accessible within all of our schools.
Alison?
I wasn't going to ask a supplementary, but thank you, Chair. Lauren mentioned bandwidth, so obviously we have problems. Well, I personally have problems. It depends on where you live. Sometimes your bandwidth struggles a bit, so I take it that's something we have to look at carefully as well, because I presume that some locations are less happy with their bandwidth than others. So there'll be a knock-on effect there.
Absolutely. Everything revolves around bandwidth consumption for all of our schools. The SWAN programme will upgrade all the technology that's out there. Most schools will end up with a fibre connection of some description, so the ability to upscale that is there. Obviously there will be cost implications around that, but the ability to increase the bandwidth will be available. Across the 120 schools, we range from connectivity of around 100 megabytes down to 4 megabytes. The minimum will be 10 moving forward, with maximum looking to be about 200. We're trying to future-proof that as much as possible and allow for the upscaling and future consumption. We're building in percentage ranges across the next few years as well to allow that to happen. It's how technology moves and what resources are going to be required inside schools that's the challenge. As everything becomes media-rich, video streaming is obviously a great facility to be able to use inside a school, but it is bandwidth hungry. So for that one, it's how deep of our pockets, I think, will be the question on it.
David?
Thanks, Chair. I get the impression this Glow, the best thing you could do is withdraw it. It appears to be absolutely useless. I don't know how many years we've had it in schools. It's still not working properly. So I'd like to know how long we've had it. And you talk about there's no cost to education services, but is there a cost to IT or some other department within this council? Somebody's spending money somewhere on an issue that's been thrown out by whoever in the past, and it's still not working. So there must be a cost somewhere, whether it's education that's doing it or some other department within the council. you can rest assured that it'll not be getting done for nothing. And you're talking, you mentioned this swan and swivel and God knows all way, and we're still in guesswork. You're making assumptions that it's going to work. And on experience with Glow, the chances are 10, 15 years' time, it might work, but you'll be playing catch up with new technology that's coming. So what's coming in now and still not working, in 10 years' time you'll be replacing it, and it still hasn't worked. Well, I'll get the benefit of the doubt, John. And KPI for pupil logons, and talk about pupil emails and whatnot. Is there a need for that? Again, that's the bottom line, because that appears to be the big issue. I seem to recollect quite a number of years ago, we got a presentation in a classroom with a whiteboard. Now, I don't know whether it's the same thing or not, but we got this demonstration with a whiteboard where the teacher tapped on the whiteboard and a different screen came up and all that different. You could have about 9 or 10 different screens up at the one time, one on top of the other, and pick out what you wanted. Is this the same thing? So, as I say, there's nothing in here that gives us confidence that in 5, 10 years' time it'll be working. And that's the problem. As you said, things are constantly changing, but is Glow keeping up with it? I don't think it is. I don't think it's caught up with when you first started.
Can I take the Glow question first of all? My understanding is, and if others know differently, they can assure me, but my understanding is there is no cost to the authority. This is the Scottish Government's and Education Scotland funded project. It's a national project. It has been nationally procured. Some of the transition from old Glow to new Glow has brought problems as it sits on a new platform, and that procurement has not been within our influence. That has been a national contract. There is no additional cost. Lauren, you can correct me, but there's no cost to the authority in its implementation. We have followed national guidance in terms of its implementation from Education Scotland, and we continue to wait for it to be better. And I absolutely share your frustration that we had expected that this time last year. In terms of the technical capacity, I think that is part of our revised arrangements with Business and Technology Solutions. We have to set out what we expect as part of our ICT strategy. We have a 5-year ICT strategy. It was agreed between the two departments, and we have to use that as part of our agreement and monitoring process. I mean, we can set out what we expect of Business and Technology Solutions, and we then have to have quarterly arrangements for that to be delivered. And hopefully the ICT strategy and the arrangements, the one-to-ones that we have in place, will allow us to have a closer eye on that. Lauren, do you want to take any of the other?
Thanks, Gillian. Just to come in on the KPIs and the logins, I agree. Sometimes question what's meaningful about knowing how many pupils have logged in through Glow. What does that actually tell you about how technology is being used in schools? And I think one of the key tasks for the new ICT strategy group will be looking at actually what measures do we have to indicate how well technology is being used in school. Theoretically, it should be something that's very difficult to measure, because it should be just like picking up a pencil or a pen and using it appropriately within the classroom. So going forward and measuring how Glow is performing, there will be some difficult decisions coming up in the future as to whether we stick with this as a product base or whether we look to come up with a different solution to provide that same type of functionality. But ultimately what we want is for technology to be used effectively and embedded in learning and teaching to enhance the experience that the pupils are gaining through schools. So the clear direction for the strategy group is going to be coming up with a mechanism to look at that across the wider spectrum rather than just Glow itself, and looking at all types of technology ranging from audiovisual to communications to X, Y, and Z, and then pulling that back together into a clear strategy that then BTS have to deliver the infrastructure to support that in the background on it.
David?
Could I just ask one more question, Chair? It's whether, I'm not quite sure whether I was under the impression that kids should have access to Glow when they're doing their homework at home. Was that a possibility, and does that work? Or was that not something that was included in the development?
It's true, yes. Glow is a cloud-based service, so you should be able to theoretically access that from wherever you are on whatever device that you've got. Glow as a product, they're moving to a solution that is device independent, so you can use that on whether an Android device, an Apple device, a smartphone, and get a good user experience on that. So that could be when you're on holiday in an internet cafe, on your smartphone when you're away, or in school or at home.
Got 3 more speakers who've indicated. Ian, Dick, Rob and Ted. So Ian?
Thanks, Chair. I think Councillor McKee's covered most of it. I mean, paragraph 3.2 indicates a fairly appalling indictment of this whole system, which has been around for so long and has never been clear to me, and it certainly doesn't make clear in this report what kind of educational use it is. And the point about emails, I think, is extremely well made. What's the point in monitoring the number of emails that pupils are accessing? I'd be much more interested to know what sort of educational use they're making of a system like that. I think my final point is just simply it's another example of what happens when you stick in a system which is not properly integrated in a centralised fashion, and is another example of what happens quite often with throughout other departments in the council. We must have a centralised system of inputting new technology.
Lauren or Julian? In which case...
Okay, I was looking at the first recommendation, and we're asked to agree whether the actions proposed are adequate to improve performance, and clearly the thing that was of major concern when we got the previous report was the fact that we're still on Windows XP, and that free support for that at any rate has now ceased. Although I do understand that you can get a package from Microsoft, you can pay for product support for some time. Although I also understand that when you sign up for that, you're possibly locked into upgrading to Windows 8 at some point in the future. Although that's something that I read online, so it may not be accurate. Although I do understand that there are some government departments that have already paid out quite a lot of money actually to do this this ongoing support for XP. I know that we're saying that we're expecting, where are we, that Windows 7 will be in all primary and secondary schools by September 2014. Now, of course, there seemed to be issues with getting that done last year, so the question is, are we confident that we can actually get it rolled out by September? And are there any contingency plans, or have we a view of how that's going to happen, just so that we're clear that the actions proposed are actually going to be satisfactory?
Jane?
Thank you. If I take the question with regards to assurances, and Lan can perhaps take the contingencies, but certainly Business and Technology Solutions have been fully consulted in this report, and the timescales have been fully agreed with them. I've had assurances, I believe, that they have already commenced the work. They've been in a number of smaller schools, and they have the work programme in place. In terms of contingencies, I think we're making the assumption this has to be done for autumn 2014.
I would agree as well. In terms of the rollout programme, it is a realistic programme. There have been several proof of concepts to ensure that the process is achievable. There's been a couple of primary schools rolled out already. There's a secondary and another primary lined up to go through as well, so that we've been through the size and scale of the establishments that need to be delivered through the summer holidays. Certainly all of the secondaries are going to be targeted through the summer, so will large primaries, purely from an access perspective. After that, the primary schools will be targeted by the technicians on an opportunity when it presents itself, but it will certainly all be delivered by September at the very latest. In relation to XP support, it is extended. There are agreements through the Scottish Government for various local authorities to extend that through a partnership agreement with Microsoft. And the question relating to the operating system, the authority works on a campus licensing agreement with Microsoft, so we can chop and change between any operating system that's fully supported. So if and when the need arises to change to Windows 8, there is no cost to do that. Although Windows 8 is more specifically aimed at tablet devices, so it's not appropriate for desktops. But we'll probably get to the position where we have choice of platform out there as we move forward.
Ted?
Thank you, Chair. Page 12, 3.3, the third paragraph, you refer to some concerns from staff on accessing resources and also make reference to a response to that. Could you tell me what that response is?
Yes, thank you. The Local Negotiating Committee for Teachers, the staff side, brought a paper to the LNCT seeking assurance that, well, looking to see if we could reintroduce paper payslips. That was the long and the short of it. Some staff were having difficulty in accessing payslips because staff felt that they had to access the corporate network. As you can see, there are two networks. You have to move from the curricular to the corporate network. To access your payslip, you have to be able to swivel. You have to go through from one network to the other. Some staff were finding that difficult and therefore finding it difficult to access their payslips in a timely fashion. I believe the LNCT accepted the need behind this, and we feel that it's worth the step to swivel to get all of the corporate benefits that access to the corporate network bring. It's not just about payslips, it's an entitlement to have that information, and we certainly will work with all staff to ensure that they get the right passwords and the right support. I think part of the issue is user familiarity with the swivel process.
Jim McComb?
Thanks, Chair. I'm concerned about communication from Education Scotland. In January 2013, they carried out this major upgrade to Glow, but it took 6 months for them to tell the authority that the browsers would need to be changed. They also said that Internet Explorer 8 would be capable of handling the upgrade, and it appears in reality that that was incorrect. That, I really have concerns about the quality of their communication.
Gillian?
I think that would be, I wouldn't criticise Education Scotland, but clearly it would have been helpful to have a longer lead-in time.
I have no more speakers. Does anyone want to come back in? Ian?
I suppose it's just a small point in what we're trying to accomplish here today, because when I look at, as I said earlier, I looked at the recommendations, we will actually make the decision 2.1, if that refers to 3.4, I'm happy enough with that, happy enough to note 2.2 as well, but consider future monitoring arrangements for Glow and ICT in schools. I just took that as we're going forward, and probably about another 4 months or whatever, we'll see another 6 monthly monitoring report in regards to the business plan. We have agreed that business plan, and at that point, if we don't feel it's, just I suppose it's, I'm trying to just get it in my mind how we do take this forward, because there's been a lot of concerns raised. If this is a dead duck, so to speak, I haven't got the concerns just as far as that by any means, but if this is a dead duck, we need to pick it up as a committee and dump it if that's the case, but if not, we need to be absolutely clear. So if that's the way forward, then consider future monitoring arrangements for Glow and ICT. I mean, I've got nothing to add to that other than picking it up in the 6 monthly monitoring reports, unless anybody else has.
And 3.4, it says the agreed schools ICT strategy will be outlined in the business plan to members in September 2014. So there's obviously something coming from there, but I do agree with it's something which we need to keep under more or less constant review just to make sure we are making the progress which has been promised. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask, what are the perceived advantages of Glow? I mean, why are we sticking with it if it's so problematical?
I think originally, back in the early days, the theory behind Glow was that it was a national resource to allow sharing across the whole of Scotland. And as that's moved forward, I think that hasn't probably been the main push behind it. It's now channeled down a direction of providing an email client and some other virtual learning environment type tools inside there. It's a great and powerful resource if it works effectively, and that's the challenge that it's facing just now. And as we're moving forward, there's a lot more open source solutions that are free for users to investigate as well. So actually now that's what that's being weighed up against, and that's what decisions the ICT strategy will be weighing up against one another. So I think you're right to question that.
Ian Dick? No? Oh,
thank you, Chair. As part of the recommendations in 2.3, when we say considering future monitoring arrangements for GLOW and ICTs in school, would it be possible, I'm just asking Gillian, that would it be possible as part of the monitoring process, would it be able to get feedback from the pupils and the teacher and perhaps parents, if that's possible?
Gillian?
Thank you. I think that's a very helpful suggestion. We certainly have surveyed all of our head teachers, and I would like to extend that to the pupil body. I think that would be a relatively easy job to do, and I think that would give us a lot of rich information. I agree with Lauren that the KPI about login was at early days. It was really about, can you access the system? That really doesn't tell us about what you do with it. So that's now what we have to look at. Satisfaction with the system, whether it enhances learning and teaching, whether they have the speed and depth of access that they're happy with. And we need to work to get that level of information.
And David?
It's just a quickie, Chair, on 2.1. Are these the actions proposed to improve performance? Are they within our control?
Gillian?
I think that is more difficult. And we have to work with Business and Technology Solutions. They deliver our infrastructure. And that's part of some of the reasons that we're here today, is to look at making that arrangement between Education Services and Business Technological Solutions really clear and explicit in terms of what they expect of us in terms of timescales and detail, and what we expect of them in terms of response to that.
I've no more speakers. So can we move to the recommendations? 2.1, agree whether the actions proposed are adequate to improve performance. We've had quite a useful debate, Ian.
I think we were being implicit earlier in regards to paragraph 3.4. I think that was cleared as well. If we could just, if it's okay, I'd like to see that included there, and I'd be fine with the rest.
Yeah, we have the indication that will happen. 2.2, note the works around the access and use of ICT in schools, which we obviously have. And 2.3, consider future monitor arrangements for GLOW and ICT in schools. I think that's probably set out in 3.4, isn't it? We're all happy with that? Ian?
Sorry, Chairman, for picking up, but again, as you mentioned, we'll get feedback in regards to that, in regards to the pupils, parent councils and such like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thank you. We move to item 6. Brownhall Primary School proposed external space provision. Obviously, we've considerably improved Brownhall School and increased the role, and therefore this is effectively to use some of the adjacent land which is currently leased from the council to the Crichton Trust in order to enable increased in space, as it says in the report, to enhance the ability to learn outdoors in a natural environment that enriches learning and play through organised curricular delivery and also free play during break and lunchtime. I think both the Crichton and the council are in agreement with this, so the only costs involved would be the legal costs. I think, Claire, is there anything you want to add to your report?
Thank you, Chair, elected members. I don't think there's anything else we want to add to the report. Lauren is here as lead officer who's been taking forward this work. So I'd ask him if there's anything else we wish to ask, but I don't think over and above what's in the report we have anything else to report.
Claire? So can we move? Jim Dempster?
Thanks, Chair. General question, if I can't get an answer today, an email would be fine. 3.5, it talks about General Requirement Standards Scotland, and it defines space standards for school. And I see if there's 68 pupils, 529 square metres, it equates about 9 metres per pupil. Is there a formula that standardises what area should be available per pupil in any school? Or if there's some indicative figure, you can email me, Lara, and that will save any time. Primary and secondary, please.
I'll certainly do that. I'll send you the detail within the regulations there. It specifies site area groupings of pupils, but I'll send you that detail.
Thank you. Can I just say, as with all these queries that we can't answer at the time, if you could send that information to all members, it might be of interest. Just copy that to all members of the Education Committee. Okay, nobody else got anything? Oh. Oh, sorry, Alistair, you're on my blinds.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to be even no more noticeable. Just for the avoidance of doubt, clearly, according to 3.4, the 1,940 square metre section is used with the tacit agreement of the Crichton Trust. I take it that this acquisition, this agreement you're setting up will incorporate this in order that there's total clarity regarding both sections.
I can confirm that, yeah, that's right. The 1940 is the space the school are currently using through the tacit agreement. The rectangle to the left-hand side of that, the 596, is the additional space we're looking to wrap up into one space through the transfer.
Peter? Peter? Do you? No. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. Just take it that this gets approved today, and how does it move forward through the process? I'm thinking, because it says we agree this in principle. For what I can understand, with a previous committee decision made back in 2006, this would be through the scheme of delegation. Is that the case? And just how does that work, please?
After agreement to move forward in principle today, we would then liaise with Property and Architectural Services to take this through the legal proceedings for the land transfer and acquisition process.
Okay, can we move to the recommendations? Are we happy to agree the recommendations as detailed in 2.1 and 2.2? Okay, thanks, Rich. So if we move to item 7, Schools for the Future, Other Enabling Costs, which request members' approval for the funding required to support the Schools for the Future programme team in delivery of the capital projects. And Claire, I think, are you speaking to this report? Is there anything you want to add?
Just one clarification also, Anne Callender's our financial officer within Schools for Future team who's been leading in this work, and I think it's important that officers that are key involved in work and have the depth of understanding are here today, so I hope members don't mind Anne's addition. One item of just clarification I just want to say in terms of wording is under 3.1 where it details the Dumfries Learning Town, Learning Hub, Northwest Cluster, St Joseph's. Just on clarity, the language you're using is Phase 1 includes Learning Hub, Northwest Cluster, St Joseph's. What it should say is Project 1, Project 2 and Project 3 in that case, just to be quite clear about that. Anne, is there anything else you'd wish to add to the report?
Sorry. It's mainly providing further information, financial information on how we were anticipating to spend the funding. And this is following on from the Policy and Resource Committee. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Members? Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of clarification for us that are a wee bit thick. In the recommendation, further staff recruitment 1621, but in 3.2, staff recruitment is 90k, and in 3.7, it's went to 921. So we've got 3 different figures. I just wonder if somebody could explain why that is.
Carol, Claire?
Nothing's second. Can you just speak that slowly again and we'll just go through the numbers?
In the recommendations, further staff recruitment 1621, and in 3.2, further staff recruitment is 90,000 or 90k, and in 3.7, you've got additional appointments, which is the same thing, I take it. The total is 921.
Good points. It is the 1621. The 90 was the figure that was taken to the Policy and Resource Committee, and that was the initial appointments that we knew we needed to make straight away to build the team so we could go ahead with the project. If we go into point 317, and you add the 921 to the 700, that's the educational working groups, the row below, and that would equate to 1621. Should have brought your calculator.
With that, Ian, do you want to speak?
I was wanting, Chair, thanks very much. I suppose one of the questions I picked up on was in regards to 3.8, and it's you try and get what's the likely projected outcome of that, because if we're talking about staff taking on a temporary basis and looks very likely that it could actually extend into full time, I would just like to understand just the implications of that, how that works out, and just on that, please.
Okay.
That's a good point, and it was obviously raised at Policy and Resource as well. We took consultation with the HR because we want to obviously make sure that we don't add any resource burdens onto the council, but also we want to be mindful of the HR regulations we need to abide by. And it's detailed there in terms of if there's appointments beyond 4 years and subject to certain items there, then they're looking at permanent. What we have spoke about internally is managing that going forward. To keep our resource lines to a minimum, so we'll appoint a project manager and a second project manager. If we don't need the third one, we won't appoint them, to try and keep the resourcing to a minimum, so there's minimal impact. There's also the timeline that we're talking about will go beyond the 4 years, because I know it's a resolution at that point in time, and we felt it was pragmatic to believe that through people going or national wastage, that would be managed, but there would be an ultimate commitment that we would look at absorbing that within the educational budget if that point came arose and people would have to get redeployed.
Gail?
Just a very quick point, Chair. The additional appointments, will they be going to external advert, or are you matching in internally?
Wherever possible, we want to provide development opportunities within the council, and certainly our first point of attack is always to look at internal resources and where we can actually provide people with internal advertisement opportunities. The external advertisement if we can't find the resource within the council.
Just on Appendix 1, Schools for the Future staffing chart, you have a senior project manager and 3 other project managers. Could you just tell me what the function actually is and what they will be doing?
So the project management role, what I'm looking to do is create a very small resource to lead on the project management aspect. And what that involves is leading projects. So, for example, a project manager would have 2 distinct capital projects and small capital projects, which is actually quite a demanding workload. What will they will do is make sure that we are compliant in terms of governance, statutory consultation and communication. They would be involved with liaising with the hub programme, the tier 1 contractors and the design team, and making sure that our requirements are actually built into specifications and the actual school. They also have a requirement to liaise with the parent councils, schools, learners, staff to make sure their requirements are included in the project. Lindsay Baker has been an acting project manager within our team to date and has performed that role has performed very successfully. And it's also really re-emphasised to us the importance of that, to make sure that we get the right project with the engagement that we desperately want to need, the right product at the end of it, and making sure that we're adherent to the governance and committee requirements, but also keeping it to budget and programme as well. So it's a very key role. Because there's quite an intensive amount of work and it is a tight team, as I've said before, we're setting up here, we need a senior project manager to be an overarching of that and to look at the more strategic approach to make sure all the projects are aligned, that there's a consistency through them, that we've got good communications back up to government and Scottish Futures Trust in terms of adhering to their conditions as well. So a real strong structure for them to deliver against.
Colin?
Thank you, Chair. It's on the same chart. On the left-hand side, Learning Teaching Coordinator, and in specific to primary school and specific to secondary. I take it we've already got Learning and Teaching Coordinators within the staff in the department. So I was wondering why we need to specifically take on more just for these projects. Can the people who are already in post not be tasked with that?
Your point's very valid, and perhaps I should have made the diagram more explicitly clear. It hasn't got a white box around it, so it's not officially being recruited for. We are indeed utilising existing staff. So we have Vanessa Morris, who's with us, who's part of the core curriculum for team. So these are educational people, Dougal Forbes and Mark Valentine, who are currently with Education Services, and we're utilising their strength. So just to confirm that we're not doing a new recruitment for those posts, we're utilising existing staff that we have.
Well, and how many other posts here? The white boxes, I take it, now are new posts, and the ones in the black boxes are existing staff.
Correct, but I probably should further clarify that, again, we're trying to use existing staff resources wherever possible. So with respect to the legal FTE, that is actually somebody in legal services who's coming over to work with us. So again, utilising existing staff members wherever we can, and also the financial officer, which is Anne, again, is identified member who's working for financial services, who's on board with us. So again, it's trying to utilise our own resource and wealth of experience before we actually go out to recruitment.
Dick?
Thanks, Chair. The recommendations we were asking, the members are asked to agree the use of capital funding already approved, so I don't know whether we've got any discretion in this matter or whatever, but the cost seems to be racking up there. There's about 8.5 million costs in the recommendations, and I don't know how guaranteed we are of a successful outcome in getting these projects done and having the funding to do them. But just a question for the finance, or is the finance department quite happy that this large amount of staff costs are being allocated to the capital project, and what are the risks in committing to this funding?
A full analysis has been put together. We've put all the current staff, the proposed staffing. We're looking at the grading, going through that with HR at the moment as well. So we're very happy. We've got everything costed out from that point of view. I'll let Claire speak to you about the risks.
I think it's... Sorry. Thank you. I think for me the risks are respect to not having the staffing on board, because obviously we've got an ambitious programme which is going to improve the lives of our learners, our staff, our students, and make us a significant step forward in education. In order to deliver that, we need the right resource in place. And I think we've acknowledged that by the commitment that Education Services and corporately we've had in terms of putting the staff team together. What we need now to do it justice is to have a permanent team in place. So I think for me the risk I would say back is about not having the resource and not recruiting this, because it's very important that we have this dedicated people. I think what it has allowed us to do in the year that I've been with the council is to really test and make sure that the staffing structure is right, the skill set that we're looking for is right. And I think certainly from the outputs of the outline business case for Dumfries Learning Town, and we're now at stage 1 for Dalbeattie, the approach has been proved to be right in terms of the level of engagement we're doing and the approach that we're doing in terms of including all the departments across the council. You know, that is obviously very hard work, and the team are working very hard within limited resources to do that. So what I would say back to you in relation to that is the risk is not having and not recruiting to these posts.
Yeah, I appreciate that on the staffing. The further enabling costs, those 5.5 millions, and how are we going to monitor whether we need to withdraw back from that? How are we going to manage that and keep the committee informed of progress on that?
I think there's two aspects of the point. I think you're very right to challenge the enabling costs. What I would say, and I think probably we've all had experience across the council, I think the money invested in surveys is very valuable. I think in terms of reporting back, we're obviously looking at an executive board to make sure that elected members have that reassurance that there's that audit and that scrutiny happening. And we've certainly made a commitment, and we really want to engage with this committee regularly about reporting back in terms of progress and budget. With respect to the surveys, and I think we continue to get more experienced in this, the general risks and costs are in the ground of any project. They're the unknowns. The more investigation we can do in terms of existing building structure around asbestos or around surface water conditions on land, or about where the bedrock is in terms of what level of foundations you're doing, they're the items which cause the risk and cause the cost movement in any project. The more investigation we can do at an early stage, which is why we did ask for the 300,000 at Policy and Resource and Full Council, the more we can de-risk the projects and take away any cost uncertainty. So that is an easy one to measure and demonstrate the benefit of that, because we'll be able to tell you and report back to say what these surveys have found and how that allows us to progress the project in early stage. And certainly all the information and experience that we're learning from Dalbeattie is definitely demonstrating that we need thorough investigation work at an early stage.
Ian, you want to come back?
Thanks so much, Chairman. I think it was similar on what Richard was bringing up there. I mean, I did have, when I first seen it, it was £8.5 million. I thought that was a whack of money. But then I thought the dog's breakfast, what happened at DG1. And I thought, well, money should be spent at this stage to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen. And I think the way it's going forward, that kind of, we're being quite secure with this. But I think I've asked this question before in regards to this is capital money being used for revenue. We've seen it many times another way around. Just make sure that's legally we're correct with that. I'm sure we have. Sure I've asked that before, but this is capital money being turned into revenue. Just make sure that's okay, for what I can see.
Okay.
We're working closely with Paul and the team to make sure that the appropriate monies are allocated in the appropriate streams so that they're audit compliant. So I completely acknowledge your point and we'll keep that in mind.
I have no more speakers indicated. So can we move to the recommendations? And can we agree them as detailed in the paper? Agreed. Okay. If we move to item 8, Dumfries Learning Town update report, which gives an update on the progress with the project and seeks agreement on the proposals for delivery and implementation as undernoted. And I think before we start the debate proper, I think Claire wants to say a few words about Cornwall Mount with regard to this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to say two things. Firstly, in terms of when we start to talk about the site options report in the appendix there, obviously want to make quite clear that Cornwall Mount is no longer being considered. We appreciate there was an error in part including that in the document, but we're quite clear in terms of that is not an option, as it is not available and it's not likely to become available. So I want to make sure that's clear and on record. I would also like, if it's possible, with elected members and Chair and Vice Chair, if we can take each point a point at a time, because there's obviously quite a lot of information in the report, and in order to succinctly go through it with the team that we've got here today, I would request your permission to actually take it a point at a time, if that was possible.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite happy to do that. But there's obviously been a number of letters of support, etc., being tabled, which you've got copies of. So what I've proposed to do is to actually take a recess to give members time to read these and take them on board. So can we break for half an hour and then we'll come back and enter the debate about all the projects. Okay? So if we can reconvene at 15? Okay, we've got 15 minutes, so if we reconvene at 11:45. Okay? To item 8, the Dumfries Learning Town update report. The recommendations as laid out are in 4 parts, and I think officers prefer to go through these one at a time. So if we can adopt that route. So the first part is to note the proposals for the further development of the learning and teaching operational structure of Dumfries Town through the establishment of working groups under the guidance of the Executive Management Group, and that's Appendix 1. So Claire, is anything you want to say in terms of this?
Many thanks, Chair, and many thanks to the committee for taking these an item at a time. I think it's important just to emphasise the fact that as much as this is a physical project in terms of expenditure to deliver Dumfries Learning Town, what's really important, this is an operational change project, and we want to demonstrate our approach and illustrate the amount of work that's committed to. We have 5 working streams, and what I'd quite like to do, Mark, Dougald and Vanessa are leading on that aspect to coordinate the teams in the college. Mark and Dougald, just a few words in terms of how the work of the groups are going and how you're seeing that evolving.
Yeah, I think the final option that was selected meant that we have teachers on board with the Dumfries Learning Town project, and the volunteers from the different schools who want to be involved in the different groups that are running have now started meeting, and I think each and every meeting has been very positive. Lots of ideas, lots of creativity, lots of questions, obviously, but also quite a lot of solutions. And within each of the schools, we've got teams which are meeting within the schools and reporting back to the rest of the staff in the schools. So there's a good, I think, quite a meaningful cascading model going on. So they're bringing back ideas from each of the schools to the meetings that are taking place. At the moment, they're identifying particular tasks, and they should, by the end of June, have a work plan for each of the groups. And it's a case of us passing the baton on to the teachers, because they're the people who will be delivering, the provision at the end of this. So it has to be something that they're happy with and they will be comfortable working with. And they're the experts.
Right, would you like to say anything on the broad general aspect, which is the primary and early years?
Obviously, at this point as well, we're trying to get on board the full gambit, if you like, in terms of teaching experience across the board, which obviously includes broad general education from the early stages. And I think what's quite interesting at this point is the buy-in, if you like, from the members of staff and the various groups in terms of what the difference this might mean to children in general, and also about the message that it sends in regard to the value of, for instance, the kind of work-based skills, etc., that kids will get from their early stages of nursery, primary. So it's not just been seen as a secondary based option. And I think that's been quite important for the people that are involved in the process at the point we're at just now. And I think it would be fair to say that as Dougal said, there's a real positivity of the people that are part of the group so far. We're still at the very early stages, but there's a real positivity from the people that are part of the groups in terms of what the possibilities might be for young people and the genuine value that will be attached to the various opportunities that the people will get through their schooling.
And I'd just like to add to that, picking up on some of the comments earlier in committee. In addition to working with our teachers, the team have also taken on a commitment to meet with every parent council in Dumfries, primary and secondary, face-to-face. And we're also undertaking engagement with every pupil council within the borough of Dumfries. So hopefully that gives you a feel for the extent and breadth that's happening here, and obviously the clear work programme. These groups are meeting on a regular basis. They're all being recorded and minuted, and as the team have said, that we're translating that into a work programme of deliverable tasks, because they're operational alignment to items that can happen prior to the physical builds being in place, and really driving it, looking fundamentally at the school day, looking at the subject choice, looking about common and integrated timetabling, looking at the transportation aspect. So every aspect of this from nursery years up is getting looked at for operational alignment across the borough, and that will field into the capital programmes as well. So we're really just keen to present that to you, give you a depth of understanding. There will obviously be reports coming to you going forward, and happy to take any comments you may have on this or any questions.
Thank you, Claire, and the rest of the team. I think this has engendered a real buzz around the town in terms of this, not only from the professional teachers, etc., but also the pupils. They're really fired up by what's being proposed, and I think it is. Well, it's obviously unique within Scotland. I think this is something which has been a long time in the gestation. I think it'd be good to see it really starting to develop now. So if I can throw it open to comments and questions. No? Okay, that's very good. So we've noted the proposals as outlined, or it's detailed in Appendix 2. Okay, so if we can move to 2.2, recommendation 2.2, Agree the staging of the projects and phasing as detailed in Appendix 2. Claire?
Thank you again. It was important to come to Education Committee because obviously we discussed about projects and phasing at Policy and Resource and at Full Council, but obviously it's very important that this committee has a responsibility for this area, has insight into this. I think looking at Appendix 2, I've got one item to clarify in terms of if you look at the South Cluster line, which is the third project down, and look to the end of that column, expected programme completion date, that should read Q3 2017, so apologies for that error. So again, just to be clear, and we're really just trying to make sure that clarity and awareness is out there. As part of phase 1, we're looking at 3 projects. That is the Learning Hub, Northwest Cluster, which includes Maxton High, a solution for the community facilities, along with looking at St Ninians and Lochside Primary School. The South Cluster is looking at redevelopment of St Joseph's College. And into phase 2, we're looking at a solution for Langlands, a solution for the North East Cluster, which is the High School and Noble Hill Primary School, and for the Central Cluster, which includes Dumfries Academy, Lower Burn and Laurie Now. We've looked at this in relation to funding availability, but also the availability and the complexity of each of the project work streams to see what programme is actually realistic in terms of milestone delivery. As I said, this has been reviewed by P&R and has been passed full council, but we felt it was important the Education Committee got full insight into this. And again, happy to take any questions or queries around this item.
Thanks, Claire. Members? You're getting an easy ride this morning, okay. So can we agree the staging of the projects and phasings as detailed in Appendix 2? Agreed? Okay, so if we move on to 2.3, note the proposed functionality of the Learning Hub as detailed in Appendix 3. And I think this one there's a colour copy which you should have received, which is contains more, well, it's more easy to read. And there's also on your desk there's this enlarged version of the career pathway experience, which was I found anyway somewhat difficult to read, so we can have that in conjunction with the Appendix 3 as well. Claire, is there anything you want to say?
Again, thank you for this opportunity to present this work. We felt it was very important to give you some more detail around the Learning Hub and where discussions have been taken forward. We've obviously given you a A3 copy of this chart because I think it's sometimes quite good to see it visually to really put it into a good way of communicating, and it's certainly a good way of communicating to our key users and stakeholders. And this is a new model that we've been developing in conjunction with the college, in conjunction with Skills Development Scotland, and we're quite excited about how it's looking. I think Dougal is quite eloquent about really capturing the essence of the hub and maybe just summarising the paper that's in front of you. Dougal, can I maybe ask for a few words, please?
No pressure then. I think what you've got in front of you is something which is a work in progress, because the nature of this development means that the hub itself will evolve as we work on it. And what you've got, if you like, is really what we would hope the hub is able to achieve. This really gives a starting point to the engineers, that's the teachers and the college people and the people who are to do with employment, careers, all the other people who are involved in the specific group that's going to be taking the hub development forward. And they have already got a number of ideas which take aspects of this several stages further. What I would want to repeat, and I think Chair has already alluded to this, is that the development of the project is not just unique in Scotland, it's unique in the United Kingdom and probably in Europe. And there are a number of education bodies across Europe who are looking very closely at what we're doing and the potential of what we're doing, because they're trying to move to something similar themselves. So this is not a tablet in stone. This is a working document. It's something that's evolving, and obviously there are other decisions which will impact on it. But in terms of the benefits to learners across the borough, everybody who's working on this project feels that the Learning Hub has immense opportunities to improve what's on offer.
Can I throw it open to members? Yeah.
I think it's just important to show appreciation for the amount of work that officers have done on this.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to endorse that. I think this is a really good document, and you know, I think it sets out in great detail what we hope to achieve. It's not only for the youngsters, but I also think for the local community, with adults wanting to return to learning and to re-skill. And I think that's a vital part of the function, not only of the learning hub, but hopefully the new schools we're talking about. You know, these are community facilities. And we need to move away from this idea that, you know, they are only there for the school teaching day and week and term, in fact, and that we really need to, as I say, sweat the resource in order to maximise. You know, we're spending an awful lot of money on these facilities, and we need to get as much as possible out of this, not only for the pupils but for the wider community, recognising that the world of work is changing very, very rapidly, and we just don't know where it's going to go in the future. So we do need to future-proof these. Okay, so.
Thanks, Chair. Just so it's not an easy ride, I'll ask a question. How we're, as you said, we're spending tens of millions of pounds on this project, and obviously the object is, at the end of the day, is that pupils' learning and personal development will have significantly improved over a 10-year period, perhaps. How are we going to measure? How are we going to measure whether we've been successful at the end of that 10-year project? What baselines are we going to have at the moment, and what measures are we going to put in place to show that we have improved the learning of children?
Claire?
I think it's a very good point, and as all our projects, we need to be quite clear about the measures of success so we can openly and transparently measure them. As part of the information gathering exercise to actually inform this project, we did a huge amount of statistical and data analysis. So we've already got that there. So, you know, you've got your basic attainment levels in terms of how we're measured at the moment. But I think what we want to do is take this up a step further. So we're looking and working with health partners to say about health wellbeing agenda, about generational aspects. So we plan to have a set of indicators which we'll put in the next stage, which will come to committee. But certainly we have a very good statistical database to actually benchmark from just now. Dougal, do you want to mention anything specifically?
Yeah, I think we're all subject in education to quality indicators that are imposed by Education Scotland and by government, and clearly we'll continue to use those. But Claire's right to say that there will be some baseline attainment indicators. But for me, the more important ones are the indicators which show how long youngsters are remaining in meaningful education and what their destinations are at the end of that. And that we're able to see more clearly that youngsters are moving through education to positive destinations, and ones that we recognise in this authority. And that may, of course, create new demands for us as a local authority, because we will have better qualified young people coming out of the system, and we need to make sure that there are opportunities for them then to go into with those qualifications and that aspiration and ambition that we hope will be engendered by their experience in the Learning Town.
Claire, you want to?
I would just support that, but also and beyond. It's about measuring the success of our youngsters when they actually go out in society, and if they thrive at university and college, and if they hold down work. So it's about the resilience that we want this system to engender and improve on. So it is so much more than just the educational aspect. We want to look about economic regeneration indicators, as I say, health and wellbeing aspects, sustainability, and we're working with departments across the council about looking about their indicators in line with supporting council priorities and making sure it's right across the piece, because this is more than just about education.
Thanks, Claire.
I was just going to ask, where and with whom will the overall responsibility for personal, social, vocational welfare for the individual pupil lie? Will it be in the hub? Will it be in the feeder school? And who would be that person?
Well, obviously, the final decision on that will be taken by the groups and the proposals that they make. But at the moment, the strong feeling is that each youngster will have somebody who's responsible for guidance, that's pastoral care, and for career guidance in their base school. And that every youngster will continue to attend their base school for at least one session every week, right the way through their education. So the person who knows them after 5 or 6 years in that school will continue to be the person who has the main role in guidance. There will, however, be staff in the hub who will feed back to schools, what is going on in the hub, how that youngster is performing, attending, all of those things. And we also see the hub as being, if you like, at the heart of career opportunities. And we would see it as a good resource, not just for youngsters to tap into to get information about courses and careers and pathways, but also for staff to get up-to-the-minute training, from Skills Development Scotland and the other bodies that have expertise in that area.
Gail?
Thank you, Chair. It's page 51 in the main report, and it's talking about curriculum. In the first paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph, it says that the hub curriculum would not duplicate that on offer in D&G College or the Barony College. That to me seems a bit bizarre, because the whole purpose of the hub is to give or to maximise opportunities for pupils. And now that we don't have the access to the colleges that we used to have for senior pupils, surely the whole point of the hub is to actually give them the opportunities they're no longer getting. So a bit of clarity, please.
I think that what we're looking at, and we've got the colleges on board in this, is a curriculum which is an entire curriculum with all the providers in it, so that the youngsters will make choices, and as they make the choice, they'll see where that is on offer. So, for example, they may well choose a course which is on offer at the college, and that will be part of their curriculum. But in terms of duplication of facilities, there will obviously be duplication if the demand on facilities is too great for one of those facilities to cope with. So, for example, there might be core facilities such as a professional kitchen or a mechanical workshop, which needs to be in both places because the demand exceeds the capacity of the provision in one location.
Members? We've noted the proposed functionality of the learning hub is detailed in Appendix 3. So if we move on to 2.4, where we are asked to agree from the short list of sites, the preferred site location for the learning hub is detailed in 3.6 and Appendix 4. I think we could enter it, or Claire would want to speak on the location options, but before we actually make an agreement, I would like to propose a slight amendment to 2.4. So, Claire?
Can I just clarify, did you say you're going to propose an amendment?
We're going to have the discussion about the options.
Right, okay.
And then I'll propose a slight change to the...
Right, okay, okay, thank you, okay. Again, many thanks, and just to reiterate the point that we made at the start of the meeting, that Cornwall Mount is no longer being considered. It's not available, so it's not part of the options review at this stage. Also, just a reminder as well, we had the recess in terms of the letters that we tabled. We felt it was very important to share any information and views that have been given to us with everybody and be consistent with being open and transparent as part of the process. I don't want to labour on this too long, and I'll pass it over to Lindsay, who's been leading on the site options work. But I think just to re-emphasise the point that we're working and really focusing on the operational benefit and additionality that the Learning Hub will bring, and really that's the important matter to improve the learners of the learning experience for everybody in Dumfries. And that really remains consistent and forefront in our minds about delivering this project for you and for our learners and staff. And I just really want to set that context. And when we're starting to talk about this, obviously, as everything else, and you saw our approach with the outline business case, it was important for us to have key users and people with expertise engaged in this process. And I hope you can see that we've demonstrated that to make sure that we have a robust review, which you have the information which is in front of you today for consideration. But I'll let Lindsay, who's been leading on this, just say a few words.
Not really got anything further to add other than to just to state, confirm that the report that within Appendix 4 is the work and the findings of the site options working group, which was made up of different council departments, partners, pupils and staff from the schools. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
I'll open it to the floor. Can I just remind members you had the 3 representations, one from the college, the open letter from the EIS about their preferred location, and the other one signed or headed Dumfries Academy, I think, which has various head teachers, etc., as signatories to that. So I'll open it up. Ian?
Thank you. It's referring to Appendix 4, the long list on page 4 of the colour supplement, and also page 20, which shows that it was a list prepared by Turner and Townsend. The list, other than the fact that Cornwall Mount appears in the second one, the traffic light system appears to be totally different from one list to the other. And could you explain what happened in the intervening period to change the individual status of these particular options? And secondly, with the preferred options given, including Cornwall Mount, which we now understand is taken out, will the funding be available no matter which of these options we eventually go down, we select?
With respect to any changes, obviously we're working on black and white copies here, so I can't see that, but we did a review, and I think it's detailed in the report. Because the initial site options asset workshop was done about October time, and there was a time-lapse period, we had to do a review to check all the statuses stayed the same. If there was any changes in that, it would be down to the, any risk items changing colour, and we felt it was important to keep that updated and relevant. In terms of the funding aspect, are you talking about government funding? Are you talking about council funding? I couldn't comment in that stage because government haven't received a bid from us for a specific item. So until we actually get some more detail on this, I don't think I could comment on that at that stage.
Ronnie?
Can I just comment on that? It's true that the policy resources, they allocated a figure of £11 million to the Learning Hub, and that's part of the agreed £48 million for phase 1. Is that correct?
Okay.
Sorry, Leader, would you mind repeating that, please?
The policy resources, they allocated a figure of £11 million to the Learning Hub as part of the agreed £48 million for phase 1.
That is correct.
Can I just say, members, at this stage, we aren't looking at the funding aspect of this. It's to do with the educational aspect, which is the priority as to what's actually going to deliver what we're hoping for from the hub, which site is actually going to be the best as far as that's concerned. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question on the ownership of the land. I'm sure most of us have received an email from Father Crosby regarding the common good aspect of King George V Park. I'm not sure about who owns that land, but if it is common good land, it seems to me to strike a fair comparison to the Portobello in Edinburgh, where they actually had planning permission to build a high school, but then the Common Good Association in Edinburgh took it to the Court of Appeal. It ended up in the Court of Appeal, and they won their case that they weren't actually allowed to build on that because it was inalienable land. And I wonder where we stand with that. Is it actually common good land? And if it is it inalienable, which is not easy to say, especially with these teeth, or otherwise?
Ronnie, you want to come in on it?
Yeah, and the only reason I want to speak about it is because I know the area well, but I know that in it was Goldie Park, and you were right, it was transferred in 1904 from Miss Goldie from Somerville, and it was a 6-acre site that was then bought for the common good. And the Goldie Park, Father Crosby is absolutely right, it is common good. The Goldie Park is common good. It's a 6-acre site, but the actual site doesn't impinge on the King George V site at all. The Goldie Park doesn't, where this, part of the King George V. The Goldie Park doesn't impinge on that at all. The Goldie Park is a 7, well, if you want in old money, it's 7 acres and 22 poles. whatever a pole is, I don't know. But that's the acreage of the Goldie Park. So that, you know, that's obviously bigger than the 6 acres that's talking about. So that has its own boundaries, the Goldie Park in itself. So I don't know whether that helps or not.
So, the potential building would not be on Goldie Park, it would be on King George V Park, not at all on the common good land.
To confirm, it is on King George V site, and just to confirm, as part of any of the work we do have representatives from legal services reviewing all the title issues, because we understand it's a very complex and sensitive area. So from the start, legal services have been involved in this process and will continue to be involved in this process as and when any detail comes up that we need to resolve, to give members reassurance this is a robust process that we're following.
I think it's also fair to point out where it is an ongoing process of clarifying the status of the land. We aren't going to make any assumptions in terms of this. Gail?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure the answer from Claire was acceptable in relation to Scottish Government funding. Page 39 of 134, it does have no indication whatsoever of any Scottish Government funding, which we had previously sort of an agreement that in principle of some funding from the Scottish Government. So I think Ian's question is very valid. Is the Scottish Government potential for funding tied to any particular site? I think the letter from the Academy has been very useful, but what it has highlighted is that we don't have the perfect site. It just doesn't exist in the town. So I think we have to look very seriously at maximising pupils' opportunities, getting them the best education we can, and I would suggest the Crichton site is the best for that.
Claire, do you want to come back on the funding?
I think on the funding aspect, I think just for clarity, you know, the work on this is to review the technical and suitability aspects of the site in terms of site option appraisal, to try and get a review in terms of getting a preferred option on the table. I think the next step is the step that you're talking about in terms of exploring potential funding after that.
Ted?
Thank you, Chair. Let me first of all say that I think the report is very full and complete. The report actually does focus very much on the best educational use of any particular site. And I think it actually highlights pretty clearly that we are talking about 2 possible sites, one of which, in fact, scores much more highly than the other. From that point of view, I think the King George V site is the one that finds favour with most of the people that have been involved in this project. It also has lots of advantages in terms of accessibility to the schools that it will actually serve. I think that would be my kind of view on it, but I'd be happy to hear, you know, views from other members.
Do other members have views on, well, particularly the Crichton and the George V site, which are obviously the favourites in the process?
Actually, I mean, talking about them 2 in particular, I mean, I think we've all still got the scars through the super school and the traffic jams going up to the Crichton campus. Lovely, beautiful site. Nobody could deny that for a second. But certainly we've discussed it as a group. We've looked at it very, very carefully. We think it's far better connectivity, far better location in regards to King George V. I'll probably leave it at that, and as far as it goes at the moment.
Okay, Colin?
I'll just reiterate what Ian said. It was just exactly what I was going to say. I've had long discussions with my group. And I would say that it's a no-brainer, basically, for access.
Thanks, Colin, and your group. Ronnie?
Chair, I think most has been said. I mean, the officers have stated, you know, within the paper, it went through an agreed process, the criteria, it's been mulled over by teachers, pupils, additional support. They've came up with a score, and obviously the King George V scores the highest. It meets the Wood criteria. In fact, it meets more than the Wood criteria.
You've got teachers, you've got the EIS, and you've got very professional people in favour of that site. And yes, and as you'll see from my words, I'm in favour of King George V site as well.
Jim? Not you, the other one.
Thanks, Chair. The key to a learning hub is accessibility. One of these sites is close to the bypass. It is relatively close to the railway station, comparatively close to the town centre, and centrally located with regard to the schools. To me, it is a no-brainer. King George V is the outstanding site.
Thanks, Jim. I've got Jim Dempster.
It's just a throwaway line, Chair, because in Appendix 4, page 34, it tells it all. It's the only one with no red flags on it. But the point I was going to make was the common good thing is something of a red herring, because really what we're talking about is the retention of land for the common good of the people. Now, for my mind, there's no better common good than making an educational establishment there. And there's only ever a row when folk want to protect for some other purpose. So the common good is really a no-brainer. It's no the issue anyway, and I appreciate that. But even if it were, the fact that it's for the common good should alleviate any concerns any member have about the use of that particular piece of ground.
Thank you, Jim. I think, Gail, you wanted in?
Sorry, thanks for letting me back in. Just a bit of clarity around the access issues from the bypass. The sort of sustainable travel links, was that factored in for when the hospital will be in situ? Because the bypass will be significantly more busy then, and the Crichton area will be significantly quieter. And I have to say that I think, as I said before, it's about maximising opportunities for pupils, and the position statement from the college, I think, perfectly outlines that. It outlines the absolute opportunities right across the board for pupils, and I'm afraid that King George V simply doesn't do that.
Thank you, Gail. I think one of the local members for the Crichton site might want to disagree with me.
I certainly would, like, as I say, even although the Crichton is in my ward, like, the accessibility to it in the morning is when the hospital etc. is coming out, it's all right the hospital moving, but there is plans at the moment. There's an outline plan for outline planning permission for 450 houses up there. So the accessibility, as I say, I don't think it's educationally wise that we should really be looking at. But when you take that, the accessibility, sorry Gail, but the accessibility on that site, even although it's the closest from the ward where even where I stay, it would probably take longer to get there in the mornings than what it would going to the King George V. And as I say, when you take the traffic light system into consideration there, it's Jim McComb said, it's a complete no-brainer for not putting it at King George V, even although the Crichton is in my ward.
There was the Scottish Government funding one, right, which hasn't been answered yet, and whether the travel sustainability links have factored in the additional traffic on the bypass once the hospital moves.
I think I responded to the government one in terms of, the focus on this report is really about the technical feasibility of the aspects, and then the affordability aspect would be the next step following on from here. In terms of transport and travel, yeah, I agree it's a completely important point, which is why we had travel people represented on the committee and sus-trans people. We did have the information from the original transport study from the site options for the relocation of the hospital, and through the work at Dumfries Learning Town we did have some modelling work. I think we need to do more work, I would agree. From that information there, they weren't flagging up any red flags in terms of the anticipated movement in traffic going to the hospital, but I completely concur it will be a work stream going forward to really model that in more detail as and when we have a direction from you as committee.
Can I just say, in terms of developments on the Crichton site, that the University of West of Scotland have indicated they want to double their student numbers by 2016, I think, and also construct a 4,000 square metre facility up there. And Glasgow University equally want to increase their numbers and build 3,000 square metres. So there's got to be a lot more students and pupils up there. And of course, we do have the added complication of the possible lodging of a planning application for 450 plus houses from the Health Board. So, you know, it's going to be a very congested site. And at the moment, I've been informed that pupils from the academy who occasionally go up to the college have to set aside one period either side of the actual period they're at the college in order to travel up there and get back down again. So it is a major problem. Ronnie?
Yeah, just another couple of points, and then I want to move a motion. But you know, one of the things that this does as well is, you know, the King George V site. It's a regeneration issue as well, you know, and it's as well as accessibility. It's right in the middle of 2 areas of deprivation, which will then create a regeneration within them areas. On the accessibility, again, it's the only site that's within 2 kilometres, you know, of each facility that's going to use that, each school that's going to use that. There's cycle paths, there's pedestrian paths, there's the bypass, there's accessibility from out with the area as well, through the bypass for Upper Nithsdale. Upper Nithsdale will then be open, you know, to access, better access to that type of facility as well. So you know, I think all the boxes are ticked, and the report does agree with that, you know, with the scoring system. So I would like to move in 2.4 that we note that from the shortlist from available site options, King George V scores the highest within the agreed criteria. And then I would like to add in a 2.5 that agreeing principle on the basis that King George V be the preferred site location for the Learning Hub, subject to 1. Public consultation through a Nithsdale Area Committee community event. I think that's important because we have people on board. We have the parents, the teachers, the pupils, we have them on board, and we need them to have a say at the area committee as well, at the community event. And 2, consideration of the detailed costings and a full affordability assessment. And I'd like to add in another 2.6, just to agree. I know it's complicit, you know, I know that it comes back anyway, but just to make it plain that agree to the report, the outcome of 1 and 2 come back to the 10th of July meeting of the Education Committee.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, I do think it's important that we do have the community consultation. I think that was one of the problems with the previous proposal for the senior school up at the Crichton site. When we actually went out to consultation on that, the most common criticism was it was just a selling job. It wasn't a genuine consultation. So I do think we need to have a community consultation event. But what we don't want is for this to become even more protracted. So I think we do need to have a relatively short consultation. And the obvious way to do that is through a meeting of the Nithsdale Area Committee, since obviously principally it will refer to the borough, although obviously it's out with that narrow parameter. Ron, you want to back?
Just to, you know, when I was talking about consultation, we need to make sure that information that goes to the consultation will make it clear of the sites, which of the sites are viable, in the same way as it does in the report on education. And the consultation say, based on the Council's criteria in the process, the King George V scored highest and is a preferred site with info on the other sites. Of course, that excludes the Cornwall Mount site that's been discounted now. And I think it's important we include in that the sites which aren't possible. Yeah, so through that consultation.
The second that.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, Ian Blake. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. A great deal of importance has been placed in the scoring system and referring to the traffic light system. And I can understand from a question earlier about the difference between the one on page 4 and the one on page 21. I could explain how how it could improve as situations go on. But if we're placing that importance in the scoring, the category under accessibility to the town centre and existing secondary schools, it's King George V scored amber in the first one, and yet it improves to green in the last one. Now, it hasn't moved location, so how could that be explained?
Claire?
Yeah, I can answer that one. In the initial scoring, it was judged on the basis of existing location, but with the approvals that would look at the site adjacent that's further in towards the bypass, then that obviously improves its accessibility to the King George V site.
Dick?
Thanks, Chair, again. I still haven't made up my mind which one's the best site. We've got the accessibility of the King George I site and the links with the college at the Crichton sites. There's two bits of information that I think we need before certainly I can make a informed decision. First of all, the King George has got the highest score, but if we can't resolve the common good issues, then it doesn't have any score at all. So we need, we've had information from the leader, which is very helpful, but I think to act properly, we need the legal position spelt out properly to us, because that. Pardon? Would you? No need to interrupt. Thanks. Thanks, Jim. Right. We don't have that legal information before. You say it's not important, but I think it is important because we get so far down the line and we find that it's not a legal possibility. Then all our work will be in vain. So we need that information, a report as soon as possible on that. And the second one is looking again at the traffic flow at the Crichton, because as Claire says, things have changed and it needs redone. Councillor Martin mentions that you won't be able to get there in the morning, but the traffic from the housing will be going in the opposite direction. It will be going out of that site. It won't be coming in, so there won't be the problems in getting into the sites. So we need that reconfigured and looked at, and then we can make a properly informed decision.
Just a moment. Can I just say, we are agreeing in principle that the citing of this is obviously all sorts of things which may not allow it to come to fruition. So this is agreement in principle. John Martin, you want
just
to come
to
in on
correct Councillor Brodie, I don't think I said you couldn't get there in the morning. I said it'd be extremely difficult to get there in the morning.
Ted, you wanted in?
No, I think the point I was trying to make has been actually answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. It was only in regards to the public consultation. For us, I mean, I agree with the amended recommendation that were proposed by the Leader of the Council. In regards to the public consultation, do the public get the right to speak at the area committee? For us that aren't actually on this daily area committee, I assume they do.
It's consultation, yes, so it's obviously open for members of the public to speak. Otherwise, it's not a consultation. You know, it's something totally different. Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. Not a step I would take lightly, but it's possible that I may wish to propose an amendment to the Leader's motion, but was wondering whether I might request a recess before I take that particular step.
Could we have some sort of indication? Do members want to recess or shall we continue?
If it's 5 minutes, I'm okay with that. So the 5-minute discussion you're talking about.
It's been asked for. We have to give them it.
Okay. If I recess for 10 minutes, shall we say? Okay. Speakers? Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a fairly minor amendment that I would wish to propose to the Leader's motion. The first several bits of it are the same, so I'll read them out, but you'll have heard them before. So at 2.4, to note that from the short list of available site options, King George V scores highest within the agreed criteria. 2.5, agree in principle on this basis that King George V be the preferred site location for the learning hub, subject to 1, public consultation through an area committee community event, and 2, this is where the changes come in, consideration of the detailed costings, potential external support, and an affordability assessment of the two leading available options, that being King George V and Crichton. 2.6. Agreed to report the outcome of 1 and 2 to a future meeting of full council to seek a final decision. I take the view, and actually I hope that it may be possible that we don't divide on this, and that we're looking at the keystone of a £95 million project. We can afford to take that decision on receipt of the fullest information.
Thank you, Rob. Can I just take guidance from governance, since we're commissioning this committee is commissioning the further public consultation, etc. I would have thought in the first instance the report would come back to this committee.
I would agree with that, Chairman.
Rob?
Happy to amend on that basis, on the basis of the governance advice, such that it would come back to Education Committee.
Gail?
Oh, sorry, I was going to propose an amendment, but I won't now. I think it's really important this committee doesn't split on this. As you say, it's too big and too important a project. I don't think full overview of both sites has been fully completed yet, and I think that going forward we do need to keep in mind that there are two viable sites which should go to full consultation. And as Rob said, if the leader's happy to take that, I'd be happy to support and hopefully not have the committee split.
Yes, I'm just being reminded by governance. Do we have a seconder for Rob?
Oh, sorry, I was going to second him, but I thought he wanted it incorporated within the leader's motion.
We'll take it a second in that case.
Thank you, Chair. I just want a bit of clarification, if it's possible, that if it goes to consultation and it comes out as the preferred option is the King George V part, where does that stand with the Scottish Government for finance if they are preferring or putting a condition of it being the Crichton campus, and how do we stand as an authority with affordability?
Well, I appreciate that the Scottish Government may have views on where this should be built, but in terms of educational benefit to the people of Dumfries and Galloway, I think it's a decision for this council to choose the best site in view of that for the people of Dumfries and Galloway.
Can I just come back? Sorry, but is it not a condition in the finance external funding from the Scottish Government that it's to be the Crichton campus? And if it's to be King George, then the authority's got to pay for the whole bill itself?
We've been offered no finance from the Scottish Government in terms of the hub on any site. That's the current situation. Ronnie, do you want to come in the back?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we haven't been notified on what is the site. As I said before, the policy resources allocated the provisional figure £11 million towards the learning hub, and as part of the agreed £48 million. So the £10 million, in order to fund it, £10 million was transferred to this project with an assumption that this would come from the Scottish Government. So it's the £10 million, that on that assumption. But it's there's been no official status on funding for the hub, where it is or whatever. And if I can get back to the whole point of this paper, the paper is an education paper. The process, the criteria is based on the educational process, not in the finance. That then goes, you're absolutely right, it then goes for consideration for detailed costings and full affordability on the preferred site, and that's what we're doing.
Dick?
Just to clarify, will the motion agree that before we go out to consultation, we will bottom out the common good issue? If it's not an issue, as has been said, then that's no problem, and we'll continue to remodel the traffic flow for the Crichton because once see how difficult it is to get to that site.
Once again, it's a decision in principle, but I think the Chief Executive may have some information on the common good aspect.
Thank you. I think the fact is that common good issues do not prevent this committee taking a decision in principle on the preferred site. That if there are common good issues, that those will be dealt with due process. And even if it is common good, then it would not fall into a category which would prevent us from building. So therefore, I come back to the first point. The common good is not a reason for this committee not to take a decision in principle at this point. But any processes would have to then be clarified that if it does turn out to be common good, and how we would go about addressing that. But at this point, even if it is common good, it does not fall into a category that would prevent building. So therefore, it is not a reason not to take a decision in principle at this point.
Yeah, I think it would have been helpful to have that information as part of the report as well, because it is flagged up as a potential hurdle to that site. And I think we just need that bottomed out before we go to the consultation stage.
Once again, I reiterate, is a decision in principle. So, although we've got indication about what the situation is, I don't think we need to have absolute clarification in order to make an in-principle decision. Yep.
One last point, thanks. That if we agree in principle, then we won't go to this consultation stage without a further decision to do it in practice.
No, we'll go to the consultation stage.
In effect, we're not doing it in principle, we're actually doing the consultation. So before we do that piece of work, then we need to have the common good fund bottomed out.
No, we don't need to do that before we go to the public consultation. It's an in-principle decision. Yeah.
So can I just ask Rob just to repeat his differences to Ronnie's thing on 2.5?
I'll have to ask for my piece of paper back.
Sorry, just for him to repeat his amendments on 2.5, section 2.
I suppose just a small point. I'm thinking I kind of touched on it earlier. I think where we were, where we've been and where we are now, we're in a completely different place, and I really do think it King George V. I think we start with a blank canvas. We brought everything together. Tremendous amount of work, and Ian asked earlier for that to be recognised. It's been recognised by this committee, and I think King George V, when it comes to an educational point of view and doing the best for our kids in Dumfries and Galloway, Dumfries I should say, it's the right decision to be taken. So I mean that's pretty much it. What I want to say, but I will stick to what's been proposed as was previous. I'm not taking into consideration, because it's a decision in principle, where the funding's coming from at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, as I said before, it's not just about the children, it's for community regeneration as well. You know, it's about reskilling people, etc. Recognising that the world of work is changing very, very rapidly. I'll take Gail as the last speaker on this, then we can go to the vote of DB.
I didn't ask to speak. I think I've probably said enough. Can you just get the motion and the amendment read out?
Okay, so we've got a motion and amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity, whilst there's similarities between the motion and amendment, I'll read them both out in full, even though I have a hoarse voice. The motion by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Martin, is 2.4. Note that from the short list from the available options, King George V scores highest within the agreed criteria. 2.5. Agree in principle on this basis that King George V be the preferred site location for the Learning Hub, subject to 1. Public consultation through a Nithsdale Area Committee community event, and that would include information on other sites within the options appraisal. Is that correct? 2. Consideration of the detailed costings and a full affordability assessment. And 2.6. Agree to report the outcome of 1 and 2 to a future meeting of the Education Committee, though it was as soon as possible, but the 10th of July, it was not an achievable date. Is that correct? The amendment by Councillor Davidson, seconded by Councillor McGregor, 2.4. Note that from the shortlist from the available site options, King George V scores highest within the agreed criteria. 2.5. Agree in principle on this basis that King George V be the preferred site location for the Learning Hub, subject to 1, public consultation through an Isdale Area Committee community event, which include the information on other sites, and 2, this is where the difference is, consideration of the detailed costings, potential external support, and an affordability assessment of the 2 leading available options being King George V and Crichton. And 2.6, agreed to report the outcome of 1 and 2 to a future meeting of the Education Committee. Members clear on the terms of the motion and amendment before I proceed to the vote?
Can I suggest we take these as 3 individual items?
I think I'd just take them.
Quite happy then?
Are members clear on the terms of the motion and amendment? Chairman, motion or amendment?
Motion.
Vice Chairman?
Amendment, I think.
Councillor Blake?
Amendment.
Councillor Brodie?
Amendment.
Councillor Ian Carruthers?
Motion.
Councillor Karen Carruthers?
Motion.
Councillor Dempster?
Motion.
Councillor Dick?
Amendment.
Councillor Diggle? Councillor Yen?
Amendment.
Councillor McGregor?
Amendments.
Councillor McComb?
Motion.
Councillor McKee?
Motion.
Councillor Martin?
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson?
Motion.
Councillor Graham? Sorry. Councillor Nicholl? Councillor Graham Nicholl?
I don't mind you being familiar, Claire, but amendment.
Councillor Thompson?
Motion.
Councillor Witts? Councillor Wiper?
Amendment.
Mr McQuiston?
Abstention.
Reverend McFadden?
Abstention.
There are 9 votes for the motion, 9 votes for the amendment, 2 abstentions.
No, 10 votes.
Okay, sorry. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, I do apologise. Not myself today. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I've got 9. Who have I missed? I said that 10 for the motion and 9 for the amendment too. I thought I read out 10 votes for the motion, 9 votes for the amendment, and 2 abstentions.
Is that right?
Yes, that was correct. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. The motion is.
Thank you, members, for your patience and endurance. I've no more urgent items for the committee, so thanks for your attendance and thanks for the debate. Is there a 9? Oh, sorry. Thank you. It's been a busy morning. Thanks.